Hello students, welcome to lesson 20. Graph an equation in the slope-intercept form and the standard form. So in slope-intercept form, we find the y-intercept, which is right there in the form. We use the slope, which is right there in the form, to go to the second point, and then we draw a line. To graph in standard form, we find the x-intercept and we find the y-intercept. We plot those 2 points and we draw a line. So let's do that. Let's graph these two equations, y equals 2/3 x minus 3 and negative 2/3 x plus y equals negative 3. Right. So here's our nice little graph paper. We'll start with our first equation, y equals 2/3 x minus 3. So this is the y-intercept. So this is 0, negative 3. And that's going to be 0, negative 3. And then our slope is 2/3. So we go up 1, 2. We go over 1, 2, 3. We plot the point. That is 3, negative 1. And then we can draw a line between those 2 points. So let's grab a line. And the point is here to here, and we can actually keep going until we run off the thing, if we would like. All right? So, and then this one can continue as far as we'd like. All right, so that is the graph for the equation y equals 2/3 x minus 3. So let's graph the standard form of this equation by first we set y to equal 0. So this will be 0. So that would be negative 2/3 x plus 0 equals negative 3. That's gone. So basically we have 2/3 negative 2/3 x equals negative 3. Divide by 2/3 is keep, change, and flip, or if you prefer, multiply by the reciprocal and you get the 1, which is what we want. So negative 3/2 times negative 2/3 gives me a positive 1x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9 over 2. So when y equals 0, x equals 9 over 2, or 4.5, 0. And then we're going to set x to 0. So set x to 0. So we have negative 2/3 times 0 plus y equals negative 3. Well, this is gone. So we have y equals negative 3. So when x is 0, y equals negative 3. Let's plot these 2 points, 0 and negative 3. Well, we've already got that one plotted right there. And then we have 9 over 2, 0. So that's 4.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and 0. So that's 2 points. And they're on the same line. So the line negative 2/3 x plus y equals negative 3 is exactly the same as y equals 2/3 x minus 3. So these are what we call equivalent equations. And they are actually the exact same equation. Because if I solve for y, so let me take this second equation and solve for y, we will find out that we end up with the same equation. So to solve for y, I add 2/3 x to both sides plus 2/3 x. So negative 2/3 x plus 2/3 x is gone. So we have y equals 2/3 x minus 3, which is exactly the same as we have up here. So these are actually the same equation. They are just in different forms. And we know there's the same equation because when we graph them, we got the same line. So to graph slope-intercept form, we find the y-intercept from the equation. We find the slope from the equation to find the second point, and we draw a line. To graph in standard form, we find the x-intercept by setting y to 0 and solving for x. We find the y-intercept by setting x to 0 and solving for y, and we draw a line between those 2 points. And then we also know that two equations that look different but graph the same line are equivalent equations.